You don't have to be making money to be running a business. If you are putting content out into the world, whether it's a podcast, YouTube channel, live stream, blog, newsletter, whatever, you're running a content business. And like any business, there are risks. Maybe you say something about a company or a public figure and they sue for defamation. Maybe you use a short clip or a song in your video, and suddenly you're hit with a copyright infringement lawsuit. Maybe a brand sponsors your content, but you miss a deadline and they demand a refund or worse, damages. Content creation isn't just about putting out ideas, it's about publishing, and publishing has legal risks. If you're not protected, those risks could destroy everything you've built. Today, we're talking about insurance for content creators, what it is, why you need it, and how to protect yourself before it's too late. Welcome back to Legit Podcast Pro. I'm Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, and today we're talking about those content creator risks and the need for insurance and the kinds of insurance and all of that. So let's start by talking about the hidden risks of being a content creator. Most content creators never think about insurance until something bad happens. They just realize and think to themselves, hey, I'm making videos. What could go wrong? Well, there's a lot. You could get sued for defamation or hit with a copyright claim or a lawsuit. Or your content will get taken down, you lose income. Or you get hacked and your audience's data is exposed. Or you damage property and injure someone while you're filming. Well, now these aren't rare cases. They actually happen all the time. Let's take a few real-world examples to illustrate the point. These are creators who have faced serious legal trouble. First off, H3H3 Productions. Ethan and Hyla Klein of H3H3 Productions got sued by another YouTuber, Matt Haas. I think it was actually Hassin Zadeh or something like that. But he sued them for defamation and copyright infringement over a reaction video that they made. Even though they did win the case, it only happened after they spent years and a fortune in legal fees to do it. Then there's Casey Neistat. Casey is a filmmaker and YouTuber who once had a dispute with a company over a brand deal gone wrong. The company expected content to be delivered on their timeline, but Casey had a different timeline in mind and had prioritized a different project, and the brand allegedly threatened legal action over the breach of contract. Then there's the case of the New York Times versus CoffeeZilla. Let me find the CoffeeZilla. It was a copyright dispute. They claimed copyright over images used in a critical investigative video. CoffeeZilla is a content creator known for exposing scams. He fought back, but the case raised concerns about how news organizations can claim rights over publicly available content. And then there's the case of Jake Paul. He filmed inside a looted Arizona mall during some protests in 2020. And even though he claimed that he wasn't involved in the looting, he was charged with criminal trespassing and unlawful assembly. Brands distanced themselves from him, and legal fees stacked up. These cases prove a simple fact. Publishing content carries risk. Even if you win, a lawsuit could drain your time, your energy, and your money. And even more examples. Just recently, Haley Welch, the Hawk Tua girl, launched her podcast, Talk Tua, became a big success, and eventually wound up promoting a cryptocurrency project on the show. And that turned into a bit of a scandal. And that led to an investigation, and that means a federal investigation. That means lots of lawyers, lots of expenses. You can bet it cost a pretty penny, and it's not over yet. And one team of podcasters recently fought off a claim by another creator, claiming that playing clips from that creator's TikTok video, they had infringed this creator's copyright. Well, after a year-long battle, the Copyright Claims Board finally dismissed the case on fair use grounds. But hey, a year of legal fees isn't something you want to deal with. I know it isn't something I want to, right? All right, so here's a hypothetical scenario. It's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Let's say you run a true crime podcast. You talk about real cases, discuss suspects, and share your opinions on the evidence. One day, you cover a cold case from the 1990s, and you suspect that a certain person might be involved, and you say so in the episode. Well, about a month later, you get a letter from a lawyer. The person you mentioned says your claims are false and damaging, and they sue you for defamation. And you try to defend yourself. Well, I was just sharing my opinion. But that's not exactly how the law works. It's true, opinion is a defense to claims of copyright because you genuinely hold the opinion, so that's a fact. But defamation isn't just lying or telling false statements. It can also be making statements that are false and don't harm, and don't have backup or any kind of evidentiary support, even though it seems like an opinion. So you now have two choices. You can fight the lawsuit, spend thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands on legal fees, or settle out of court and pay a huge sum to make the case go away. Now, if you had media liability insurance, your legal defense could be covered. You wouldn't have to drain your savings or lose everything you've worked for. So let's talk about what insurance every content creator should have. There is no one-size-fits-all policy for content creators, but there are several different types of insurance that can protect you. The first of those is media liability insurance. Errors and omissions, it's sometimes called. That second, what it covers is things like defamation, libel, slander, if somebody sues you over what you've said, or copyright infringement if you accidentally use protected content, or invasion of privacy if someone claims you shared private information or somehow ambushed them or caught them when they weren't expecting to be recorded, or misrepresentation if a brand or sponsor claims that you misled them in some kind of a deal. So you need this if you give any kind of opinions or use any third-party content at all. You really need a media liability E&O policy, errors and omissions policy. And then there are the general liability coverage kinds of insurance. This is going to cover things like bodily injury or property damage if somebody gets hurt or something gets broken while you're recording or filming on location, or at your location even. It covers your legal defense costs if someone claims that your content caused them some kind of harm. And so you need this if you're out in public when you're filming or recording in a studio where you have guests coming in, or renting a studio, those kinds of things. Next up, we have cyber liability insurance, and it covers things like data breaches and hacks and lost income due to cyber attacks. And you need this, well, if you store subscriber data, sell digital products, run an online store, community, course, that kind of thing, you could become a target for hackers. The fourth kind of insurance that is something to think about is business interruption insurance. What this does is it covers for lost income if your content becomes demonetized or suspended, your channel is taken down or hacked. And you need this if your livelihood depends on YouTube, TikTok, or podcast ad revenue. This kind of thing protects you from sudden income loss. And now 5 is equipment insurance, or this might also be called loss, theft, or damage. This will cover cameras, microphones, computers, hard drives, lighting, and sound equipment if they get stolen or damaged or lost. And you need this if you are relying on expensive gear to create your content. Now, let's face it, we all do. This prevents massive out-of-pocket costs if something goes wrong. You shouldn't assume that your regular homeowners or renters insurance or car insurance is going to cover it if your stuff is stolen from your home or your car. Remember, what you're doing looks like business, and almost all personal insurance policies will exclude and not cover loss or damage sustained in the course of a business. At very least, you'll want to get a business use rider on those policies to cover this kind of thing. And then there's professional liability insurance for coaches, consultants, educators, and other kinds of professionals. This covers things like claims that your advice might have caused a financial or personal loss or harm. You need this if you teach, coach, or offer paid consulting or advice that's sort of professional in nature. Even if you're not establishing a professional relationship with your listeners, they could come and claim they lost money following your advice. So, how do you get insurance as a content creator? Well, first off, you need to identify the risks. Do you talk about real people? Do you use third-party content? Do you film in public? Do you make money from sponsors or coaching or courses? You need to find an insurance broker who understands media and digital business. Not all agents understand the specific kinds of risks that we podcasters, YouTubers, and influencers might incur. So look for brokers that specialize in media, entertainment, and those kinds of businesses. Now, next up, it's a good idea. In fact, many of these kinds of policies will require that you have some kind of a consultation with a lawyer, someone like me, who can analyze the content and the kinds of risks that your particular content entails, and also the measures that you take to avoid unnecessary risk. And some carriers will actually require a formal lawyer's opinion letter before they will write that coverage. So you're going to want to do that and then compare the policies. Make sure that the policy you're looking at covers online content and social media. And check the exclusions. Sometimes policies won't cover things like defamation or copyright issues, so make sure these things are covered. And don't wait. Don't wait until it's too late. Most creators don't really think about insurance until they're hit with a lawsuit or a takedown or some kind of financial disaster. And by then, it's too late. All right, so now a quick word about risk. Risk isn't a bad thing. In fact, taking risks is what really drives growth and success in business. Nobody wants plain vanilla, non-controversial, boring content. Big, bold action means taking some risks. But it's also wise to do everything that you can to manage and reduce that risk. That means making sure your business is set up right, uses smart practices and processes, things like contracts and respecting intellectual property rules, and protecting your own intellectual property, and of course, insurance. Insurance is an investment in your future. If your content is publicly available, well, then you're running a publishing business, whether you're making a dime or not. Want to level up your legal protections? I've got a free secret video for you. It's a sample lesson from my Easy Legal for Podcasters program where we teach you how to DIY all of the legal protections you could need to get in place. You can watch it by going to gordonfiremark.com/level up, all one word, level up. And that's going to be it for this episode. If this was helpful, please subscribe, share, and protect yourself before it's too late. I'll see you again next week on Legit Podcast Pro.